to you.
All right, thanks again for coming out and kind of back on a normal schedule now. Just wrapping up the Ohio win. I thought it was a great team effort by our football team. And I think right now that we're a team that's finding a way to win, as opposed to maybe a year ago, we were a team that found ways to lose. And I think part of it is maturity and kids being older and having more experience. But I also think the investment that our players are making each and every week is really showing up on game day. Defensively, we really settled down after the first drive of every half. Ohio took the opening drive and went right down the field, and I think they had 7 yards the rest of the half. It was almost the same story in the second half, that they took that opening drive 95 yards and scored, and then after that we really limited them. And I think to hold an offense of that caliber to 14 points was a great job by our defense. But the key to that was we limited their explosive plays. Ohio's got a lot of very explosive playmakers. Certainly the quarterback, the ability to contain him was critical. And I thought our defense did a great job of following the plan and executing the plan. And we made plays on the perimeter. Offensively, we were 3 of 3 in the red zone. Going into the game, Ohio had allowed the fewest trips in the red zone of any defense in our conference. And so we talked to our offense about it's hard to get there, but when we get there, we've got to cash in. And certainly that was a major plus for us, is that we got into the red zone 3 times. We scored all 3 times. We did not turn the football over. We did not allow any sacks. Our ability to run the football on third down, our ability to run the football at the end of the game and close the game out, I thought was very important. And then obviously, special teams played a huge factor in that game. Our punt block unit was outstanding. And we had the 2 blocks, and I think to some degree the blocks caused their miscues, because I think it probably rushed or unsettled them a little bit. And at the end of the day, we got 19 points off of our punt block unit. 2 of those blocks were converted to touchdowns. The other muff was converted to a field goal, and then we tackled them for the safety. And I think at the end of the day, that proved to be the difference in the game. So we have great respect for Ohio. They're a very good football team. We had to play at a high level and make big plays and not turn the ball over and score in the red zone and limit explosive plays, and we did it. And so it was great to get that one, but we moved ahead pretty quickly, and this week presents another great challenge. As everyone probably knows, I think Kent is a nationally ranked team now. I think they were 25th in one of the national polls. They're 9-1. They've won 13 of their last 15 games. You could probably go back in history and someone could prove me wrong, but they might have had the greatest bye week in the history of college football. Last year they were 1-6, and they had a bye week right before us, and they really changed a lot of things up offensively. They found their identity, and since then they've been lights out. I think their offensive production before that was they were averaging under 200 yards a game, and since then I think they're over 400. On offense for them, it really starts with their offensive line. Brian Winters, their left tackle, might be the best offensive lineman in the conference. He's certainly very, very impressive on film. He's got great feet. He's physical. He finishes blocks. Their whole left side, they're awesome. They block very, very good people. And again, it's not just they come off the ball. They're athletic. They pick up the twist game. It's a really impressive group. And then you have 2 really, really good running backs that go with that. It's really the 1-2 punch I think every coach dreams of having. You have a guy, Archer, who's a speed guy. I mean, this guy's a blazer. I don't know what his time 40 time is, but I would bet you he's somewhere in the 4.3 range. This guy can fly. He runs by people every week, and you just can't rest. When he is in the game, he's capable of producing a 60, 80-yard play every time he touches it. And then they combine that with Durham, who's a 250-pound pounder, and it's a great challenge for our defense, because when number 1's in the backfield, you've got to take the proper angles, because if you don't, I mean, he'll take a seam and hit a home run in a heartbeat. And then when Durham's in there, you've got a 250-pound back that'll lower his shoulder and is deceptively fast and can also make big plays But the third piece of this is I think their quarterback is playing really well. Spencer Keith is a four-year starter for them. I think at a point last year he was kind of a game manager, and now he's become a playmaker. He makes plays with his feet. He's thrown the ball better than he has in the 4 years that we faced him. He hits the open man. He makes some very impressive throws. I think he gets them into the run plays they want to get into. When the box is outnumbered, he'll check out of it and get to pass plays. And I think he's playing at a very high level. And his receivers are older guys too that are very dependable and reliable. Defensively, they're very disruptive. That they play a little bit of a unique form of defense in terms of all their pressures, that they probably bring more corners and more safeties and more zone blitzes than any team that we've played, and it really starts inside for them. Their two tackles, Nix and Brown, I think are as good a 1-2 combo in the league that we've faced. Certainly at the second level, Batten and Malula are very good players, and then in the back end they've got two all-conference guys in Wolf and Wallen. So at every level of their defense they have an all-conference caliber player, and the nature of their defense is they're very disruptive, and I think that shows up. They've created 30 turnovers this year. They're a +20 turnover margin, and when you create that many extra possessions for your offense, you're going to win football games. And then, special teams wise, they're the #1 punt unit in the conference. They're the #1 kickoff return unit in the conference. They've only given up a total this year, the whole year, they've given up a total of 15 return yards on their punt team. So they're averaging about a yard a game returning punts against them. Their kickoff cover unit is 5th. Every special team is in the top half, and 2 of their units are #1. So they've built a very, very solid football program that is really solid in all 3 phases. So we're going to have to play extremely well. We're excited to be at home. We're excited that it's Military Appreciation Day. We're also excited to honor our seniors. For our senior class, this will be their last home game at the Doit, and we certainly want to send those guys out the right way and keep our goal alive of winning the MAC East and playing in Detroit. All right, no questions? That's great.
Would you talk, Coach, first of all, about the challenge that your defense facing? You've mentioned it a little bit already, but how, without Xing and O'ing, what kinds of things can you do to stop a versatile run offense like Kent's?
We're going to have to get off of blocks, and we're going to have to tackle well. When you go back and watch this game a year ago, we had guys unblocked in the backfield and at the line of scrimmage, and we just missed so many tackles in this game. And certainly we got to give credit to Ken for making our guys miss, but our best players last year in this game didn't tackle well. And we've got the same guys and they've got the same guys, so our good players got to tackle. And we got to get off the blocks, and we got to create pressure. And you can say those things every week, but when you play against an offensive line, the caliber of Kent's, it's a challenge. And it's the same as last week, John. When you look at Kent, the amount of juniors and seniors, I think they have 3 senior starters on the O-line and 2 juniors. So, these guys aren't going to be intimidated. They've played against Alabama, down in Tuscaloosa. They've played SEC teams. They went to Rutgers and beat a team that had a top 10 defense. So, these guys have played against some of the best defenses in the country, and against Rutgers, they did a great job. So, I think anytime a team has a really good offensive line, that's where a good offense starts, and this is where the challenge with this week starts. I think it's strength against strength. I think we have a very good defensive line. I think they've got an excellent offensive line. And certainly who controls the line of scrimmage on that side is going to be at a major advantage.
As you're getting closer to that once lofty goal, are you finding it tougher to keep the team around that old, let's take one game at a time when you're that close to getting to the MAC championship?
No, I think when you are winning and every game means so much, it's actually easier to keep that focus. again, I've done this for a number of years, and you know, when it's going well and a team has good leadership, which this team does, you know, this job becomes a lot of fun. You know, our leaders right now take care of so many problems and handle so many issues and control the locker room in such a positive way. You know, when 2 years ago when things aren't going well, then the job is hard. That's really when you have to coach. You know, if you've created the right culture in your locker room and you have the right people in place, you know, this is what we've worked for. And it's a huge game, and we're really excited to play in a game like this. Of course, we want to win it, but I'm really proud of our football team, and this is fun. I mean, you know, there's times when you're building a program that you go through those weeks that it's drudgery and it's tough and you got to keep pulling teeth, and we don't have to do that this year, and we certainly don't have to do that this week. We've got really good leadership in our program now, and whenever we finish practice, I always let the captains break them down, and their messages are right on point in terms of what we have to do on a day-to-day basis. So I don't think our guys are worried about Saturday. I think right now they want to make sure we have a good practice on Thursday. And in terms of a team buying into preparation wins games, you know, that hasn't been a hard sell with this group. I think they know that, they realize it, they understand it.
You were 1-3, and it wasn't a terrible 1-3. Although I know you probably didn't compete the way you'd hoped to down at Virginia Tech. You're 1-3, and coming off of that game, how did you keep this ship on, you know, this focus, and that would allow you to string together this kind of a 6-week stretch?
I mean, as much as I'd like to take credit for it, I think our captains kept them like this. I mean, we have a weekly meeting. Every week we meet Monday at breakfast with our captains, and you know, I first of all open it up and I let them talk and the things they see. And you know, after we were 1-3, that meeting we had, I felt good about our football team because I thought those guys were on point with where we had to go. And I certainly, I think, shared this before the season, and I know I shared it at times off record. And I thought the whole key to this season was, you know, just surviving September. That we knew it was going to be a tough schedule, but I really felt like we had a good football team. That as long as we, you know, with the schedule we had in September, as long as we didn't lose confidence and we stuck together, I thought we had a chance to have a very good team this year. And you know, at that point, I think there's only so much a coach can say. Either the leadership of the team feels like they've invested so much in the season that, you know, they're not giving up on what their goals are, and if the leadership doesn't, then the rest of the team won't. So I really credit our captains and our seniors with keeping this thing moving forward. And obviously, you know, the second half at Akron was critical for this football team. You know, that after the 1-3 start, we played Rhode Island, which is a game you have to win. But you know, at halftime of Akron, if it was going to go the other way, and they didn't let that happen. So it's we've got a good group, and we've got a very well-grounded football team here. I really like the character of our guys. I don't think we don't have a lot of ego guys, and they're in it for each other. And you know, we have really good numbers on defense right now. We're, you know, 5th, 6th, 7th in the country, something like that on defense. But if you notice, I don't know if we have a tackler who's one of the top 40 tacklers in the conference. You know, you know, Chris Jones has a lot of sacks, and obviously he's a name, but you know, we don't have a guy in the MAC that I think is in the top 35 or 40. So what we're doing is we're playing really, really good team defense. You know, guys are taking on blocks the right way. They're delivering it to the support player. You know, at times they're giving themselves up so the free hitter can make a play. And I'd like to think that's kind of the culture of our team. That, you know, we're doing what we need to do to win games. We're not worried about the stats or how many offensive numbers we're putting up. And if it means in the second half we're only going to throw the ball once, nobody cares. We want to win the game. And there's times that you have teams that when you do that, guys get upset that they're not getting more touches or this or that. And none of that is going on with our football team. Our guys are really enjoying the success the team is having. And I'm proud of them for that too, because it's a very unselfish team.
breakfast with the captains every Monday?
Mhm.
What kind of things you talk about?
We talk about anything that they want to talk about. We have 6 of them, and 3 on each side of the ball, and some are seniors and some are juniors, and just it might be, we talk about practice schedule, or it might be the weekend schedule of what meal we're having, or at times they've suggested we do more, maybe more, ones versus ones for the competitive level. But if you're going to tell your captains that you want them to take ownership of the team and be leaders of the team, and there's times they suggest things and I say, no, we're not doing that. Obviously I've got to make the final decision, but at times they've brought up some things that are great points, that they present them in a very unselfish way of, we really think this could help the team. And we've had that communication all year, and sometimes it's things that may seem immaterial, like what pants we're going to wear on the away trip. But if those things matter to them, and then it's going to be important to us. So, and I think this group of captains has done a really good job of having the pulse of the whole team. And I think they're also respected that when they say, hey, this is the decision, the team falls in line, even when it might not be the most popular decision. I think they certainly are able to sell it that this is in the best interest of the team. And those guys have done a great job with that all year. But we meet every Monday over breakfast, and I think it's been really productive from both ends.
How do you develop this unselfish culture amongst your players? You have 100 kids, and obviously you've got your playmakers, so how do you get everyone to buy into this kind of idea?
I think number one, it's recruiting. I think in recruiting, you try to, these are the questions we ask. Do they have a work ethic? Do they love football? You try to recruit captains that have been in leadership roles that have to look at things from a team perspective. But I think a lot of it is just the culture that the team takes on. And when you have good leaders, they're teaching the younger guys that this is how we do things. And that's where I mean that these years it's fun. You deal with so much less off-the-field issues because so many of those things are handled by your leadership and your older guys. And it's year 4 now. You're starting to establish a culture of how you do things. And the majority of the team came here knowing that those would be the expectations. So you're not trying to sell kids that maybe bought on or were sold on something else. And it's just, it's a real positive. So, we have really good character guys here. We have, I can say it over and over, but this team is fun to coach, not just because of ability levels, but because of the type of people they are and the type of young men they are.
Will you talk a little bit about your senior class, Dave? I've heard it called a kind of an eclectic group.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag now. Because we don't, there's only one 5th-year senior that came here on scholarship, and that would be Chip Robinson. And then we have a number of 4th-year seniors that were part of our first recruiting class that, certainly I got to give credit to Coach Brandon and his staff that, 3 of those 4 guys were committed to that staff, and when we came in here, we had to keep recruiting them, but they held on to their commitment to Bowling Green, and certainly, Jordan Russo's, Chris Jones, and Dwayne Woods are 3 of those guys that had already been committed. John Pettigrew was certainly part of that group. He was the guy that we recruited when we got here, and John has really had an outstanding senior year. And then you have some walk-on guys that we awarded scholarships to. Certainly Steven Stein as a kicker. Bart Tansky, who's a walk-on that became a captain. There's a couple of junior college players in there. Dominic Wharton, who started all of last year and has never really quite been healthy this year and hasn't played as much because of it. Scott Hodges, who's given us very valuable depth on the offensive line. Timmy Moore's another guy that we recruited here, and unfortunately has been hurt this year, and because of injuries, hasn't played as much. I think a guy we're really going to miss is Corey Johnson. Corey transferred here from Houston and has become our starting long snapper. So, it's unusual in that, usually your senior class, the majority of them will be 5th-year seniors that all came here together. So of our 11 seniors, one of them fits that category, and then it's, I think 5 fourth-year guys and some walk-on fifth-year guys and some junior college players and a transfer. So it's, but they're definitely, they've become a tight-knit group.
Your team that is, thrived very much on defense and special teams, has your offense been overlooked a little bit, or is it still a concern getting the production out of it that you would like?
Well, again, the idea is that you need to score more points than your opponent. And in that regard, our offense has been very successful the last 6 games. And part of it, too, is perception. I mean, if you look at our numbers, they're not that far off from where they were a year ago. I think our yardage might be down 10 yards. And the fact of the matter is that I don't know if we were any better on offense last year. Our numbers were better. But when you're behind by 3 touchdowns in the 3rd and 4th quarter and you're throwing the ball every snap, you're going to move the football more. You may even score more points, but they're meaningless points. And last year we turned the ball over 28 times. This year we're not turning it over. Last year there were many times in the second half that we had a lead, and because we couldn't run the ball, we couldn't take time off the clock, we couldn't flip field position, and we ended up losing the game. This year we're converting 3rd and 1s. Late in games we're getting first downs. When we get into what we call a 4-minute offense, which is in the 4th quarter playing the game with a lead, how many times this year have we finished the game with the ball in our hands? And again, it might not be pretty, but to me, when we can go 3, 4, 5 yards a clip with a lead in the 4th quarter, that's the greatest offense in the world. Does our passing game need to be more productive? Yes. I don't think the last 2 weeks we're happy with how we're throwing the football. But we've run it so well. We're playing well on defense. We've done things in the kicking game. I mean, part of the reason we didn't have more yards at Ohio is how many times did we have a short field? We were presented with a 24-yard field or a 29-yard field, we scored a touchdown. And again, those aren't a lot of yards, but those are beautiful drives. So, again, is it, are we a top 10 offense statistically? No, but I don't think we're playing in a way that would allow that to happen. And we're fine with it. And again, the question is, if we get into a shootout, can we respond? And we haven't had to. If we can we do that? I mean, we're certainly going to try, and I have confidence that we can, but we certainly haven't proven that yet. But with the way our defense is playing, I hope we don't have to prove that.
Anything else?
Yeah, I got one more on one of your seniors. Steven Stein has been the focal point of a lot of things that have gone on with your team, both good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
Could you just talk about how he's been able to, it seems like he keeps a real good attitude and he's persevered through all that.
Well, the reason I laugh is when I first got here, my first spring, Stein was so bad that I wouldn't let him kick with the offensive line in front of him for fear that one of those guys might get a concussion. I mean, it was literally, they'd snap and duck. And if you would have told me back then that this guy will ever take a meaningful kick for us, I might have resigned on the spot. And I make that point that I don't know if people can realize how hard that young man has worked to be in the position he is. I mean, I'll be telling stories of Steven Stein for the rest of my career. That you never, ever give up on anybody. I mean, he was awful. He was duck hooking, and I think we once had an offensive lineman like in the World Tub after practice because a Stein kick hit him in the backside there, and he had a bad bruise. So we wouldn't let him kick with a snapper and an offensive line in front of him, but he just worked so hard. And I've said this before, but certain guys have just willed themselves and worked themselves into being good football players. And has he missed some kicks? Yeah, but I mean, he certainly hit a big one last year against Miami, which turned out to be a big difference in that game. And last year when we were struggling, he came through for us, and he still comes through for us. I mean, he is, I think he's almost perfect with extra points this year, and he's a really, really good young man. And when he leaves here, he's going to be very successful, whatever he decides to do, because he's got a great work ethic. He perseveres, and, you know, we get on him and people get on him because he misses a kick, but he comes out here the next day unfazed by it and goes out there and works his butt off. So I'm really proud of him, and I'm really glad he's on our team. And, I mean, he's also helped us win some games. So, you know, it's easy to focus on the misses, but I still remember some of the big kicks he's made.
And the second part of that is, he told me today that his Twitter blew up after the Florida game. And how does that make you feel? Like, he said, if somebody wants to do it, why don't you come out here and try to do it? I mean, you know, just kind of joking, because not everybody can do it.
Yeah,
How does that make you
I
feel,
couldn't
though?
do it. I mean,
Yeah.
I go out there and hit an extra point, and I'd get out of the way too. I mean, it's not that easy of a skill. You know what, it is what it is. You know, I mean, if our players who play Division I college football, and we're gonna play at Florida in front of 88,000 people, and you wanna have a Twitter account, it comes with the territory. So, you know, do I like that? No, but, I mean, I think we all know, you know, does anyone like being criticized? No. I mean, I'm sure that if people criticize your articles, those things never make you feel good, but it's part of coaching college football, it's part of playing college football, and it's, you know, it is what it is. And, you know, that's why I don't have a Twitter. Mine doesn't have to blow up if you don't have one.
Will you talk a little bit about the MAC is really, as a conference, is getting on radar a lot of different places in the media, and Kent is becoming one of those darlings. We'll talk about, if you would, the MAC kind of getting some love for what it's done this year.
I mean, I think it started last year with the success that the conference had in the bowls. And, you know, and I think there's been a lot of, you know, whether it's some of the BCS AQ wins this year, I'd like to think that the way that we played Florida helped in that process. We'd have loved to win that game. But I think top to bottom, this is probably as strong as the conference has been in the 4 years that I've been here. And some of these 3-7 and 4-7 teams are, I think a year or two ago, would have been 8-4, 7-5 teams. I just think the league is really good. And again, I've said it a number of times, but, you know, it's a cycle that there's a lot of older quarterbacks now. And I certainly think that helped. I think there's a lot of older offensive lines. You know, you just go from Ohio to Kent, and you're looking at a bunch of guys that have played 3 and 4 years, that have, you know, 30, 40 starts under their belts. And when you have that type of experience up front with a 4-year starter at quarterback, and it's not just Kent, but a lot of schools I think are in that same situation, you know, it's going to elevate the level of play. And, you know, I think our defense fits that mold. I mean, this is a lot of the same players that a year ago and 2 years ago that people couldn't wait to play. We're running the same defense with the same players. What happened? They got better. They physically got better. They got stronger. Our strength coach, Coach Horrigan, has done an unbelievable job physically changing our football team. So, you know, what are you doing different? We're playing the same coverages. Calling the same fronts. We're running the same blitzes, and we're doing it with the same players. Our players physically got better, and they're older and they're more experienced, and we're playing at a higher level. And I think that's going on with a lot of teams right now. And certainly Kent would fit that mold. And Ohio fits that mold too.
When we talk about teams getting that attention, Kent is really, I mean, I hate to say it this way, but they're kind of the flavor of the day. I mean, is that, your thoughts about that? I mean, does that kind of do a disservice to the other teams in the league? I mean, does it, are you overlooked as a result?
No, I mean, they've earned it. I mean, they're 9-1. They beat a top 15 team in Rutgers on the road. They're playing at a high level on both sides of the football. I mean, they've earned their ranking. They've earned their record. So everything they're getting, they deserve and they've earned. And you get that attention and you become the darling by winning. So if we want that attention and we want to be that darling, then we need to win. So, you know, that's not something you politic for. You know, they've earned that with their performance on the field. And again, we're excited that we get to play a team of that caliber for control of the MAC East.
Anything else? Coach.
All right, thank you.